Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Johnny Mo. We're back with another episode. We're bringing you episode 55 tonight. We just did our last review earlier this week, which was nice because we haven't done really much in the last couple of months. So to come back with back-to-back reviews in 1 week was a nice little stretch for us. We are bringing you Firestarter, the remake from the 1984 film. This is another Stephen King adaptation.
But before we get into that,
before we do that, we'll do our traditional drink of the night.
we have to do our drinks of the night. You go first this time.
This is Blue Point Blueberry Ale. Blue Point is a local brewery in the area. It's been well known for quite a few years. I've enjoyed their blueberry ale for a very long time. I haven't had it in a while, and I'm glad I'm drinking it tonight.
And drinking it out of a Montauk brewery.
Montauk brewery glass. Yeah, I know.
A little faux pas.
A little faux pas there, but that's okay.
I am drinking one of my standards, which is my Bitburger out of the can. Now, it's a big can. It doesn't fit completely in my Black Forest Blue House glass. Black Forest Blue.
How many ounces is that?
This, it's got to be...
What is that?
It's one.
Oh, it's a pint.
It's 1 pint. Or 1 pint and 0.9 fluid ounces. Gotta be. So it's pretty big. So I actually have some left over in here.
Oh, well, thank you for that. Please, we all want to see that.
So I get to go back and forth a little bit. And I just actually... So this Black Forest Brew House glass, which is from the Black Forest Brew House in Farmingdale, New York. I just recently found out in the last month that they are no longer in business. I think they closed due to COVID. They probably closed about a year ago. They used to be down the block from where I work, but I've been working from home for 2 years. The last time I went into work, I drove past. I'm like, oh man, they're closed. And the was like, yeah, they've been closed for about a good year. You know, and it's a shame because I wanted to steal more glasses from them, you know.
This is not the only glass that he's stolen.
Yeah, I love these Black Forest Brew House glasses. I actually have a couple, but, you know, I always wanted more. So,
well, I'm glad that you get to make the name live on, so to speak,
yes.
in other ways.
Yep. Shirt-wise, I think I'm just wearing
we're doing shirt announcements?
Amity 75 Jaws shirt, which is... I actually really like this shirt. Like, this is like a good...
I think it's a cool shirt. I got you that shirt.
It's, you know,
that's
there's
cool
a
shirt.
difference between, like, wearing, you know, a Jaws shirt with a shark on it and wearing something more subtle like this. And I like the subtleness of this because I'm sure there are a lot of people that would look at this shirt and really have no idea what the hell it is.
Right.
But, you know, and that I don't even think there's a shark fin. Oh, yeah,
there is.
There's a shark fin. There's a shark fin there. But it's, you know, it's a cool, subtle movie type shirt. So I dig that. And you, of course, have your Seinfeld
reference. Yeah. All right. So, guys, thank you very much for watching. Please grab your drinks. Join us for the rest of this episode, and hope you get to enjoy the review.
Have a big swig.
So, as always, guys, this is going to be a spoiler-filled episode. So, if you have not seen the movie yet, or if you just don't care about spoilers, please go ahead and listen. But if you do care about spoilers, go watch the movie and then come back and join us after the fact.
Now, previews... I want to start with the preview.
Yeah, preview-wise, because you got interested by watching the trailer to this thing.
Yeah, I was... I thought the preview looked okay. I think, as it turned out, I think the preview pretty much forecasted the entire movie and showed most of the significant highlights of the film.
Yeah.
You know, I like it when there's a good preview, but you know, there's more to come. You know, and when you go, and you want to be like, okay, what else is there? And when you get to the movie, and there isn't much else, that I don't like.
The trailer should be an appetizer. It should
be
like
a tease.
It should just give you enough to give you the hook to say, okay, you want to come see this movie, but not literally showcase point A through Z.
Yeah, and you know, the argument could go both ways. You know, did the people who made the trailer do too much? Or did the people who made the trailer do exactly what they were supposed to do, but the filmmakers should have made a better film with a lot more going on, a lot more things. You know, I don't know.
That's a good point.
It's a little bit of both.
But you can see it both ways. I think I think a lot of films. Do I want to say suffer from that, or because if you've seen it both ways, it's just there are many examples I feel that you can say in today's age that the trailer shows
way too much.
Either way too much, or like you said, or the film just doesn't do a great job of making a better movie.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these trailers nowadays do a really good job of hooking you in, wanting to go see some of these films. And that, kudos to the people making the trailers. They're doing their job.
Right.
But then when you go to see the film, it's like, that's not really what I thought the trailer was going to.
Yeah, but it's also a scenario where like they shouldn't just pull all the best parts of the movie into the trailer. You got to leave something new, something unseen.
Well, that was annoying with comedies for a while, because with comedies, usually you got to see most of the big one-liners in the trailer, and there was nothing saved for the film.
Yeah.
So like when you saw that scene come up and you had the line, it was still kind of funny, but you probably laughed more when you first saw it in the trailer.
Yeah.
And it's just now it just leaves you like, oh, I wish there was a little bit more. I wish I could have laughed at more scenes.
I'll be honest with you, I think one of the biggest abuses of that was the first Suicide Squad film, where if you watched all the trailers that were put out for the Suicide Squad, you probably saw almost all of Harley Quinn's
some of her like trademark
best lines in the movie, because they just every new trailer pulled in other new Harley Quinn scenes. Harlequin, her one-liners and quips and her remarks, and it's just like they just showed way too many of them. They didn't show all of them in any one trailer, but between all the trailers, you got
the gist of
you got like 80 to 90% of like her best lines.
Yeah.
Before you went to see the movie. And I'm like,
and because she was one of the better parts of that film, it was too much.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that. So this film, we got some. I think Zac Efron's probably the big headliner for this film, right? Playing the father Andy.
Yeah, and like I said, I was talking to Chris. Like I've heard of Zac Efron, but I don't know that I've really seen too many of his movies.
Well, you're probably not the audience member that has a poster of him hanging in your bedroom.
Yeah, definitely not.
So Zach's a very good-looking actor. He's been in a bunch of films. He's been, I think, a heartthrob for quite a while. Definitely taking on more serious roles, I believe, as of late compared to early on in his career.
Mm-hmm. Well, he's gotten older, so he's
I think he's kind of trying to branch out with his acting ability. I liked him in this film.
I did too. I just feel, I don't know, I felt his performance was very subdued. Now maybe it's supposed to be because of the character, not supposed to draw attention to yourself. But I felt like
that's kind of what I was.
Yeah.
That's why I took it as that, as the portrayal.
Because otherwise, his character was very emotionless almost. But I think maybe it was supposed to be.
I think he had to be almost like the backbone, especially when it's just the two of them.
Yeah.
We have a kind of a newcomer in Ryan. What was her name? Ryan Kira Armstrong.
Ryan
Kira Armstrong. I think she plays Charlie. She was
the little girl, Charlie,
who takes over for Drew Barrymore, who played this role very early on in her career back in 1984.
Now, was that pre or post E.T.?
Post E.T. I think E.T. was like her real big
breakout.
Role.
I think E.T. was probably 82. I think.
I think you're correct. I think it was 82.
So 2 years later.
So I think this was probably her next film, most likely, that she did.
Yeah, it could be. Now,
and a completely different role.
As it turns out, I've never seen the original Firestarter with Drew Barrymore.
Which I'm still shocked when you tell me that, because I know you're a big Stephen King fan.
Yeah, and I've seen most of the films. I've read the book. I read the book actually quite a long time ago. I have the hardcover at home.
I have not read the book.
I read it quite a long time ago. It's not one of my favorite early Stephen King books, and to me, the early Stephen King books are the best. Basically, the stuff he did from like the middle 70s, starting with Carrie, going into for a good 15 years. You know, books like The Shining, and Salem's Lot, and, The Stand, and Christine, and Firestarter's in there too. And a lot of those books I really, really like. And I found Firestarter was okay. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
It's not one of my favorite Stephen King books, but I didn't dislike it. But I never read it again. So it's been a while. And for some reason, never saw. Now, Chris knows that I hate movies from the 80s, but as it turns out, I have seen more movies from the 80s than any other decade because of how old I was at
Right.
that time. I was I was a teenager.
Yeah.
Going into my 20s, all the way into the 80s. And I saw a lot of movies in the 80s. And I regret seeing a lot of them, but that's the way it goes. But, so it's actually odd sometimes when there's a movie from the 80s that's well known that I haven't seen because I've seen so many. But it's like at the end of the day, you can't see every movie.
No, it's
There's
impossible. There's too many. There's too many
like
films.
so. For example, we're going to see Top Gun Maverick
That's
soon, and
damn right.
I've never seen Top Gun.
And I told him we are going to
Go
sit
figure.
down and I'm going to force him to watch this movie before we go because he has to watch the original.
Right. Then I get these people that go to me like, "Oh, you've never seen Top Gun." It's like, what do you know about movies? And I'm like, you know what? I've seen about 100 movies that are must-sees that you've never even heard of. Don't even tell me.
I don't
that,
think Top Gun's I don't know if it's a must-see.
You know what? But
before you're seeing the second
it's not
one-
that it's a must-see, but it's one of those movies.
It's a
that
pop culture film.
Right. It's a pop culture film. It's well known. It's very referenced. It's one of those things that you need to see just to be able. When somebody mentions it at a conversation at a party, you can follow along with the conversation. Or if somebody makes a reference to it,
Look, if
you
they
get it.
if they didn't make a sequel, if you went the rest of your life without seeing Top Gun, are you going to be okay?
Yeah, but was there a Top
you
Gun
are.
2?
This is Top Gun 2.
No, but there wasn't a Top
Before?
Gun 2 in the 80s or anything like that?
I don't think so.
Okay, I think I'm probably thinking of some other series that had a multiple.
There was after Top Gun came out, there were a couple
wasn't
of films
there?
that
Wasn't
were
there like Iron Eagle?
yes,
Oh,
those are the ones that you're thinking of.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm thinking of Iron Eagle.
Because there were multiple films after Top Gun came out that were based around like the Air Force and
Okay.
fighter jets.
Well, yeah, I mean, see, that's the thing. If this movie was, it was well received, it was well known, and to a certain degree, it was imitated.
It had a cult following,
Yeah.
and I think it's just.
And it was a popular film. Like
It
no one's
was.
gonna. I'm sure it's not like a 4-star classic. I'm sure it wasn't up for Best Picture. or
No,
anything like that.
no, but listen, it's a fun film.
It's a
to
fun
sit
movie,
through.
and if you want to make a list of must-see Tom Cruise films,
That's not it.
I'm sure that's in
Yeah.
the top 5.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Like I'm sure it is. Between that and what's the one where he slides on the floor?
Oh, Risky Business.
Risky Business. These are Tom Cruise.
No, his
movies that
early
you have to
films
see.
are definitely like
Jerry
fun to
Maguire,
see.
whatever.
Days of
But,
Thunder.
Like these are, it's just one of those things. It's just, what. So I am going to watch Top Gun.
Yeah, eventually you will. But
Definitely before the movie, which is coming out soon.
which when we review that one, I'm sure we'll have a nice, lengthy conversation about all this.
So now Chris has seen the original Firestarter movie.
I haven't
Didn't
seen
read
it-
the book.
No, I never read
I've
the
read the
book.
book. Didn't see the original. Don't remember the book because I read it 30 years ago.
And we both saw the sequel.
And we both saw the sequel.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Well, the remake.
Well,
I
we
should
both
say.
saw the reboot.
But I was talking to John because when we saw the movie when we were walking out, I was really trying to remember and rack my brain because I have not seen the original film in quite some time. I knew they were different in a bunch of different, in a few ways of how some of the scenes were really set up, but the basic plot line was still there. It was still very similar to the original, and it just so happens that the original 1984 right now is on Peacock, and you can actually stream it for free.
Do I have Peacock?
Peacock's a free one. It's the NBC Universal streaming service.
If I pull up my smart TV menu, it's going to show up somewhere.
Peacock would be on there, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out.
And that was the one nice thing is that just last night, before I didn't even realize that we were going to do the review tonight because we just saw the movie Thursday night.
Yeah.
That we were going to do the review, so I was like, oh, you know what? Let me just go back and re-watch some of this really quick. And I ended up watching all of it. It's not. I mean, it's under 2 hours, but it's a quick watch. And I remembered actually a lot as I'm going through the film and how it all starts off. But it's weird. So like in the new one, you get a lot of scenes with the mom towards the beginning of the film and like how like the family starts to really develop and how they really worry a lot about Charlie and her developing abilities.
In this one, the new one.
And the new one in the 2022 one. But in the 1984 one, you actually start with Andy, the father, and Charlie on the run.
Oh,
And
okay.
the mom is basically who's played by Heather Locklear is just it's all flashbacks.
Flashback. Okay.
Interesting. And
I like that.
it's just funny how like the scenes were all set up. I mean, like I said, very similar plots for both films, but definitely executed differently.
Now
But
this is a Blumhouse.
now this is a
film?
Blumhouse production.
Film,
So
Blumhouse
Blumhouse has
production.
definitely become the big,
I
if you
think
want to say like horror genre
horror studio.
studio. Yeah, I mean most if you're a horror film nowadays, you're going to Blumhouse.
And I actually kind of like that because to me that's very reminiscent of what Universal Studios was back in the 30s when they
all
were
the monster
when they were
movies.
producing all the monster movies. Like that became like their thing. This is like Blumhouse
And I have no problem with that because I
is
think
making all these horror movies.
because
And
you know
that's
if
good.
not for them, maybe they're maybe they don't get released.
Yeah.
So I
So we're actually hoping. We were actually talking about it. We were thinking that maybe if Blumhouse keeps making these movies, like they'll eventually you can mine Stephen King for a lot of whether movies
Yes.
books that have not been adapted at all, which there probably aren't that many early ones, but some later ones for sure. But
But I feel like
you
you're going to
can-
see some remakes.
you can do it's time for some remakes.
Do you go back and you could go back and you can redo Christine? Do we get a another attempt at Carrie?
Yeah.
A better attempt at Carrie?
Well, I always said,
Warner Brothers did.
One day, someone's going to have the balls to make a movie version of Carrie that is faithful to the book.
Yeah.
In terms of storyline and presentation.
Do we get another try?
Nobody has done that yet.
Do we get another try at The Shining? That's more
Yeah.
true to the book and not
Yeah.
what Stanley Kubrick did. Now, again, Stanley Kubrick's film is a classic, like highly critically acclaimed, lovable film for most
One
people.
of the best horror films ever made.
So do you
But-
attempt to remake it? But it's not like the book.
It definitely has departures from the book,
And-
and Kubrick had no intention of making
Right.
an accurate.
And so
adaptation.
do you try to do that, which really would probably make a remake of it different than the original film.
Now they did, I think they did like a TV version remake of The Shining that was supposed
Yes,
to be
they did.
more.
Yes,
that
they
was supposed
did.
to be more accurate. But I'll be honest with you, a lot of the TV movie adaptations fall a little flat.
And which we talked about those earlier today, like they did the Tommy Knockers.
Yeah, they just don't work as well. I
Salem's
think
Lot was
because
another
of,
one, wasn't it?
Well, Salem's Lot.
Or was
is-
that also theatrical?
No, that was TV.
That was
but
TV also.
that might be the only one that is really good, and very well.
Did you like the Stephen King's the
miniseries? On
miniseries
TV? No, not really.
back in the day? Yeah.
No. But you know what it was, the Salem's Lot is probably the earliest TV adaptation of Stephen King's and it was done in the late 70s.
Yeah.
And I think that was to its benefit because they did movies better in the 70s, even TV movies they did better in the 70s.
But I would really think that you're right about that. I would think that if Blumhouse was smart, if they wanted to kind of push, they could mine Stephen King
Oh my goodness.
and get, a dozen or so films of
Oh
his.
sure.
And,
Christine I think has only been done once.
yeah,
Period.
Christine would be a really good remake nowadays. If you could, redoing Cujo.
Well, has been redone in the last.
When was the last Cujo done?
I want to say.
The original was what?
Original.
That was 80s.
That was back
early
in the
80s, right?
But I know there's a newer version of Cujo out there. But again, a lot of
think you're
these,
right.
a lot of these newer, a lot of these newer versions are, I don't want to say they're low budget, but they're just low production value. Even if they were movie releases, like they weren't in the movies for that long. You see them show up on cable all the time.
It was well received, but
Yeah.
Warner Brothers did
Yeah.
those, not Blumhouse.
Right, and it was well received, and it was they made a big deal about it. They
Yeah.
put a lot into it. In fact, they spread it out over 2 movies. Stephen King is worthy of a major movie adaptation production of
Give a
book
big
into
budget,
film. There really is. It's worthy. The material
Yeah.
is just so good,
You know,
especially his early classics.
And if you're wondering why we're talking so much about these other projects and so far and not so much about Firestarter, this film is not a long movie. This film was
Yeah.
was just over an hour and a half.
Hour and 40 minutes, maybe.
Right, and that was with the
At
credits,
most,
I
at
think.
most, yeah.
You know, so this wasn't a long film.
It was kind of short, and I don't know. I feel like it probably. It's weird though, because the film was short, and I did feel that the movie was actually very slow. It had a lot of.
I
dead
think the middle.
space.
I think the middle dragged. I think when they got to the guy's house that picked him up, right? That picked them up on the road.
Yeah,
I felt like it was like really slow
that was a long scene for no good reason.
along the way. You know, it
didn't-
dragged a little
it
bit.
didn't really do anything to progress the story. I definitely felt the movie had a lot of dead spots, and we were talking about what was the director's name?
Keith Thomas.
Keith Thomas apparently hasn't directed a whole lot of films, and I'll be honest with you,
Nothing that I saw on
I think it
IMDb.
shows. Like I don't think the movie was that well made because it was slow and there was a lot of dead space and there was not a lot of heavy emotion coming from a lot of the characters, and I felt like what was in the background was just very bland. Like
Okay.
everything just kind of faded away. It didn't have like really outstanding or detailed set designs or anything
Yeah.
like that. Everything was very basic by the book, studio
two-
lot like a what do you call it?
Well, especially
like a set.
Well,
being on
especially
a
once
set,
they got
being on the
to
set.
the facility. Once they got to the facility, it felt like that completely.
Yeah.
Like when they were out in the country area, I don't know. There's something about. I mean, obviously, a lot of that was filmed on location. The two main characters, both Zac Efron's character and also Ryan. The two of them, I enjoyed their performances. Like I definitely thought they did a really good job for the most part. Especially, I mean, a young actress like Ryan. And I've said this before. I think
Was it
this,
Ryan Ryan or Rian?
It was Ryan.
Okay.
So that spell. I think I've said this before that I think child actors nowadays are just so much better than what they were, at least when I was growing up. And she, I thought, did a really good job. The one thing that we were
Yeah, I thought she was good.
the one thing that we were discussing in the film is that, and the one thing I couldn't remember from the '84 film, is that does her character in this film has multiple abilities. It's not just pyrokinesis.
Yeah.
So the father has almost like a telepathy,
Telepathy to like influence people.
right? So they call it a push, to be able to like push
And
people.
the mother,
She almost had like a telekinesis, right?
I thought she was almost like psychic.
A little psychic, but she definitely had telekinetic.
Oh yeah,
abilities.
yeah. No, she was able to move. She was able
Yeah.
to move things. Yeah.
But she also was a little psychic too, and it definitely seems that Charlie picks up or inherits a little bit of the mother's abilities as well as her own. I don't think she's able to push people though, right?
No.
I don't think she had that ability, but she definitely had a little bit more of a.
If she tried to, it was very, very little and subtle.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing that, but Charlie does have more than just the pyrokinetics, and I couldn't remember if Drew Barrymore's Charlie had that in the first film or the 1984 film, but she actually does. When I went back and saw it, she does have a little bit of that psychic ability, so that does ring true in both films.
I found that when the mother dies, which is relatively early in the film, I found the emotional response of the husband and the daughter to be underwhelming.
Yeah.
It was like collateral damage.
Well, is it just like
oh, we gotta go, we gotta leave her, and then we're on our way.
Yeah, it didn't. I feel like you
Like-
didn't. There wasn't a chance for them to like really grieve. Like they weren't showing any type of like grief.
But even when they were presented with her death, it was like it didn't have like
Well, it didn't hit,
it didn't have the impact that you were expecting it to have.
and it should have.
It should have, and to me,
Like to see, like would have been more realistic at that point because Charlie's so emotional and she can't control her abilities.
Right.
To just have a big outburst
yeah,
that would set the place ablaze or something that would have completely like rocked where she was. because she was so emotionally overwhelmed
Yeah.
that she blew up. That would have been, I think, more appropriate, and at least then you would have seen like the real emotion like coming out.
Yeah, and you didn't get that. That's what I felt like. I felt like so many emotions in the film were very subdued. Mm-hmm. But then, again, they even talk about how in the movie how they were, they're trying to bottle up.
Yeah.
They were trying to bottle up their powers. They're trying to Charlie's powers. They like bottle her up and don't get excited. So
Yep.
so there is a little bit of like what I want to say imposed self-control on
Yes.
their part. So maybe that,
Which is what they were trying.
Maybe that
they're
lends to
trying
it.
possibly.
so I mean maybe that, but it's still like even still like that you would still expect that like that to be the bursting bubble.
Right.
Like you've held back, you've been holding back your whole life, and then this is what's going to push you over the
But they
edge.
saved that to the end.
Yeah.
Like they save it really for the ending when with her father, and
Yeah.
it's interesting because her Andy doesn't die that way in the first film.
Oh, okay. I'm curious.
Okay, so it's definitely a different scenario. Like I actually was not expecting.
Yeah, and I actually enjoyed that scene because I thought that was like a really good turn the tables, screw you. Because ultimately,
Yeah.
basically, the father, everybody in the facility has these special, I think, like what do you call it, like contact lenses on,
Right.
that blocks
That blocks his ability
to push them. So he uses his ability to push to make Charlie set himself and the girl who's in charge of the whole operation on fire. And it's like, it's like a self-effect because he knows that, he's stuck there and they don't really care about him too much. And they're either
Right, they want her. They
they
want
want
to
her.
study her.
They're going to either kill him or lock him away somewhere and throw away the key. And he doesn't want them to have her, so he's willing to give up his life. And it's actually a pretty intense moment
Yeah.
because I wasn't expecting that. Because even when the girl in charge realized what's going on, she's like,
It's too late.
She's like, oh shit! Didn't think that was going to happen.
Yeah.
They didn't make any.
There was no hint that was going to occur.
Yeah, like they didn't plan for that possibility.
No, not at all.
And she got fried. Now there was one part in the movie which I thought was, but I guess they had to have this is where she gets scratched by a cat
Oh, yeah.
and she reacts to that and like burns this cat, but the cat's not dead. Mm-hmm. It's like half alive, in a lot of pain. Third-degree burns and all that stuff. It's singed and everything, and it's like they tells her to put her out of her smoothie. But it was a really like I don't know. That's a tough scene. That's a tough scene.
If you're an animal lover, like, and you see that, like, you almost like, because you see the cat at one point pictured.
Yeah.
And you're like,
He's-
you feel for the cat.
He's just a poor outside cat, whatever. He's not he's not a maniac cat, and all of a sudden he gets fried.
But there's a scene in the trailer that is not in the movie. And the scene in the trailer is she's out in the woods, and it's almost like she's trying to train herself because at this point her father's been captured, and she's training and she's trying to control her abilities. And you see in the trailer that she's looking up at this bird, and she basically fries the bird so that it bursts.
Yeah.
And that's not in the film.
Not in
That's
the
cut.
film. That was a little weird. But it's like it's like it was a little weird like how they were doing these things where like it seems like the family's been on the run for years and they keep going from place to place, but they don't have like any sort of escape plan in place. Like they just like they left, with what they had in a truck, and now they're just on the road hitchhiking and whatever.
But because it's so
they have no money.
But it's different because this takes place in present day. It's hard because there's the technology to track people. That's why they can't have cell phones. Like in the beginning of the while they're still a family and Charlie's going to school, the kid's gonna make fun of her because like the teacher is like, it's okay if you have some screen time. A couple minutes of screen time a day is not gonna kill you or make your brain go mush. But they just don't get like the parents are trying not to be tracked because the two of them, I guess, because they were part of the experiments early on, they're trying to, I guess, find them, and they're still trying to stay off the grid.
It's like you got these kids at the school that like treat her almost like she's Amish or whatever, and
Right.
And you got some bullies there, and like You know, I really hate bullies in schools. I really hate them. You know, so like, you know, the scenes where the kids are like picking on her, like, I don't want Charlie to fry them and burst them into flames, but I want her to, like, you know, get up and just, you know, punch him in the
Just
nose.
teach him a lesson.
Yeah, teach him a lesson. Like,
Yeah.
you know what? Screw you. Like, you know what? I don't got to put up with that.
Well,
Like,
when those kids were on the bike, like circling her, right, in that one
Yeah.
scene, and
yeah,
you're
a bunch
like,
of punks.
right, and just like, oh, like, tell me she's gonna fry them. 'Cause, like,
She should at least burnt all their wheels on their bikes.
burnt the bikes. That actually would have been great. Actually,
Yeah.
I would have enjoyed that.
There's one line from the movie that they play up in the trailer all the time, and I think it's a little bit corny when
I think I know which one this is.
she's like, you know, she's talking to somebody in the facility, and she says, "Liar, liar, pants on fire," and sets on fire. And like, you know what? Like, I could see where, like, you know, in the script room,
You're
like,
oh,
that's
we can use this line.
This will be a great line.
this is gonna
Liar,
hit.
liar, pants on fire. And you know what? To me, I don't think it hits because it's just corny. You know, unless she like did a lot of those type of corny things, and then it would be like a trend. Like, okay, this is what she does.
Right.
You know, she's almost like a Peter Parker. She like, you know,
She like
she has like wisecracks.
yeah,
before
she's
she-
a wise ass when
Yeah.
she's like
Right,
when she's burning
But
people.
to just have like that literally is almost like the standalone moment, and it to me it falls flat.
I think if it wasn't in the trailer where you saw it every single time and you actually saw it in the movie, you might actually crack a smile at it more. But like when she says it, you're like, all right, got that
Yeah,
out of the way.
whatever. Yeah.
Like yeah, no, it does. I agree with you. It
And
kind of
like I
falls
thought that
flat.
was a little corny. But when she does and in the trailer they show her like really let loose, like when she's like screaming.
Yeah,
Like that's like, and to me that's like the biggest let loose moment in the film. And it's in the trailer. And it's just like,
yeah, like you see
you know,
it.
like it would be different if it was like there were other moments like
Yeah,
that.
and
there
she's like she's
weren't.
burning people with like fire, like retardant suits on.
Yeah.
you know, and she's like burning them from the inside. Like it's, no, it's. I mean, it's scary. That's like, you know, that's an ability that is very powerful. And Kurt, oh, what's his name? Kurt something Smith, the guy from that '70s show. He's in this in the beginning. He was the scientist that like created Lot 6, created the serum.
Oh, the old guy at the
yeah,
home.
yeah.
Okay.
So he says a line in this that's also repeated in the 1984 film, and it's basically about Charlie's power and like that it's only in its infant stage at this point
Yeah.
in time with what she's got, and they really don't know how powerful she could become.
Right.
Like, could she just set fires for the rest of her life with the control of her mind, or could she become so powerful that she actually can create a nuclear explosion?
Yeah.
And and this is one of the reasons again why like the people at this facility want to study her to see like how like her the almost like the limits, if there are any, of her power.
Yeah, and you know, and the guy in charge, or the guy that used to be in charge, you know, he's, you know, basically calling the girl. You know, the woman who's now in charge of the operations comes to talk to him, and he's just basically like, you know what, you're full of shit.
Yeah,
Like you want
you
to
just want to study her.
you want to study her.
You want to use her
You
as a
want to
weapon.
exploit her. You want to weaponize her. You know, you're not doing this because it's in her best interest.
Right.
You know, you're doing it. You know, almost like, you know, an emotionless military like decision.
There's a moment definitely where he, I don't know if you want to say like resents what he did, but he realizes almost like what they did.
Well, it's kind of screwy.
But he comes off as like take the girl out. He's not talking about like saving the girl.
No, he's saying kill her.
He says to kill her. He says if you like the best thing that you could do would be to kill her.
Because she's going to kill all of you. Oh, and
I don't even think it was that. I think it was just about like
Being afraid
afraid
of
of
what's gonna
of
happen.
what she could do.
Yeah, because ultimately, this whole experiment was really crazy. They just make it sound like, you know, they were on a college campus and got a bunch of college kids
Yeah.
to get in some
And it
type of
basically
study.
injected him with like this like psychedelic mix.
You know, injected, and you know, now it's giving them powers and all this stuff, and it's just like, you know what, like that's crazy, like totally, like, you know, whatever they did was illegal.
But there's stories about like how experiments on this were done back in like the 50s and 60s. So like
Yeah.
I mean, I think that was kind of the reasons why like Stephen King wrote about this when he did make Firestarter, because like the parents in the 1984 film, it's almost like they're almost like hippies almost.
Yeah.
When they do that, so it made sense.
Yeah, and it definitely is a slight. It's like a variation of the Carrie theme because Carrie was telekinetic, but she was, I think, born with her powers. She wasn't part of an experiment. Whereas this is like.
But Charlie was born because
Charlie was born from parents who
were
were
given. Yes.
Given. Yeah. Because it's a slightly different scenario.
But you can definitely see like the similar themes for sure. But I think one of the most shocking things to me was the ending of what happens to Charlie, right? Because she basically
destroys the
destroys the facility and gets out.
She leaves.
But
which was to me was actually a little reminiscent of when Carrie. When the Carrie
high school.
When she leaves the high school in flames, she's just leaving all the carnage behind her. She exacted her revenge.
Yeah, I know you definitely see that.
Definitely reminded me of that. And then she's like hanging out on the beach, and the guy who was basically tasked with getting her, in fact, even earlier saved her.
Captured her father.
Yeah, well,
he killed her mother.
Killed her mother, captured
the father.
Was basically hired gun for this group.
Yeah.
But they pulled him out of retirement to do this job. But to me, it was obvious that he had some powers.
Yes.
Because he was definitely like able to. He was resilient against whatever was thrown against him. So there was something going on there for sure. So he's probably from that experiment as well. But then at some point, he rebels and saves Charlie in the facility.
Well, he talks about a line where he relates to her, right?
I think it's almost like he's in awe of her. You'll know what I'm saying when you finally meet her.
Yeah, but he talks about he says something. He says something in the film, and maybe you remember this better than me. Knowing what she's going through now, and it's like he knows that they're going to exploit her. Because of what's been done to him.
Yeah.
So I think that's where he just comes to the realization, why he just is like, you know what, forget this. And he ends up saving her. But what's weird, he carries her in the end, right? Doesn't he pick her up?
Yeah.
And he starts walking down the beach.
Yeah.
And that's basically the end.
That's the end. And I'm sitting there going is this the end of the movie?
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, this is the end. And I'm like, and this is well into 2 hours.
I'm just not. I just wasn't satisfied.
Yeah.
With the ending, I just really wasn't.
It makes me wonder what the end, how the book ends. I want to go back and see how the
almost
book
like
ends.
see how it ends.
See what the ending is, because it's almost like an open-ended ending. Like she's alive and now she's with this guy. What are they going to do?
But also too the fact that she knows that he's responsible for killing her mother.
Yeah, but I think she's okay with that because he redeemed himself. Because it was, the guys in the flame retardant suits were going to get her, and he shot them all.
Yeah, he protected her.
He saved her and basically laid himself in front of her. For basically, do with me what you will.
Right.
And she didn't kill him.
Yeah.
She showed restraint. And then he went out, and now they're together. They're gonna. I don't know what they're gonna do. They're gonna change the world. I have no idea.
I don't
what
know.
are they doing?
I don't know at all. And I certainly don't think they're making a sequel to this. I just think it was. I would like to know what the ending is because I've seen the ending to the 1984
That's what I was going to
film.
say. How does the 84 film end?
It's different. Do you want me to tell you how it ends?
Yes, you can tell me how it ends.
So,
I've read the book, so it's okay.
So the couple, so the guy that picks them up in the truck in the 1984 film, and they go back to their house and they eat and everything. The wife is not paraplegic disabled in that film. So it's like the two of them, this couple, take them in. The husband realizes that the father Andy is lying, and then he starts to tell them the whole story about it, and the guy doesn't believe them. But then the agency comes to take them, and the couple starts to see what they can do and then he's like, "You're obviously, I always like, holy crap, you're telling me the truth. This is real."
Yeah.
So at the end of the movie, she basically takes everybody out at they call it the shop in
shop,
this.
okay.
Okay, so she basically just all hell breaks loose, screw everybody. She walks away, and the very end of the film, I don't know how this happens, but she ends up back on their doorstep.
Okay.
She ends up back on the family doorstep.
Okay.
And the two of them looks like that they're going to raise her and take care of her.
You know what? That's I'm okay with that.
yes, yeah,
Like, where else is she gonna go?
right. Like she doesn't know anybody else.
Yeah, right.
And like that's where like in this film, like it's odd because like I guess because they have that, they both have like abilities. They've both been exploited. It's like, and like you said, because he maybe has redeemed himself in her eyes, that he's going to raise her, and it's just a very, I wasn't satisfied with the ending. Mm-hmm. That's all I can say. Just something about it when it ended, when the credits rolled, and I'm like, that's it. That's all we're getting. So just I wanted something more, but that is what it is.
So one thing I was just thinking about is, the father who's got like the ability to push, he becomes like this like self-help guru guy that charges
Yes.
$100 a session, and like
Worth it.
And yeah,
Worth it.
yeah, and he does this stuff, but you do get the feeling that they're really hard up for money.
Yes.
It makes you wonder why, and he knows that doing the push is taking a toll on him. So he's doing a push. Every time he does a push, he's getting $100, as opposed to, why not just go to a bank and push the teller and get, $5,000,
But at least this way, he's helping people.
He's
and
helping
and
people.
It's a legit.
Yeah,
business.
like, I mean, it's like,
He's not stealing
he's
the
not
money.
stealing, but it's like, he could steal the money without anybody getting hurt. And I think it's like, to me, if it was me, I would justify it because I didn't ask for this curse, but if I keep using it, it's going to hurt me. So, if I'm going to use it, I gotta make it worth my while. I think I would, I think I'd rather do that one push and get $5,000 from the bank than do, 500 pushes to get that same 5,000.
That's pretty funny.
It's got to hurt. You just got to sit and say, sorry, I feel bad. I'll make it up some other way.
So I mean, overall, it was okay. That's
Yeah,
what I thought.
to me,
It's all
the
right.
movie was just okay. I felt like it was lacking in a lot of depth and a lot of detail and commotion and emotion.
I had a good start. The middle of the film to me was just extremely slow. Her taking out the facility, I thought was good. There was like good visuals to see, and then the ending, you lost me.
Yeah, I thought the movie was very routine and very lackadaisical, and to me, like like an amateur effort, like somebody like coming right out of film school and doing their first major film. They're just able to do it, but they're not
Right.
able to do anything imaginative or great with it. And to me, there was nothing really imaginative or great with this movie. Not to say that I didn't enjoy it. It was okay because it was a good story. Like I liked the story, but I just felt like in someone else's hands
It could have been executed better.
yeah, with a little bit more, better cinematography and some better set design, maybe even a better script, and some, more, pushing the actors for more emotion. I think it could have. I think it could have been. I think it could have been a better movie.
Yeah, I don't disagree, but that's what we got.
That's what we got, and I think, I think we are going to start seeing more Stephen King adaptations, mainly because of the success of it. And I think
I don't disagree with you. I think this is another way
I
of
think
going.
this is like the beginning.
I don't know who
someone's going to
owns-
sit there and say and go, oh, we could do some other movie, maybe make a lot of money.
And I don't know how it works. Like, I don't know did Blumhouse buy the rights to Stephen King's works? Did they
Or
buy
just-
certain amount of works? How much does Warner Brothers own of Stephen King's works?
Mm-hmm.
Because they, was it just it? Was it was it certain titles that they're purchasing the rights to,
Yeah.
or are they buying the rights to his whole catalog? I don't know. I don't know how it works, so I don't know what we're going to get. But I don't think this is going to. I mean, obviously, it's not going to be the end because Stephen King's been doing so much for years. Not only that, HBO did adapt The Outsider, which was Stephen King
Oh, okay.
as well,
I saw that.
which is more recent Stephen King.
Okay.
So Warner Brothers definitely has
That was like a limited
miniseries, yeah,
I
limited
saw
series,
that.
yeah, which was good.
Yeah.
And I think it seems to me that Warner Brothers definitely owns some of the catalog titles.
You sure that's Stephen King?
The Outsider.
The Outsider? You know, it's really funny because
it was.
when I first started watching The Outsider, I thought it was an adaptation of The Dark Half, which was a Stephen King novel. And then I'm like, oh, it's not The Dark Half, but it's kind of like it a little bit. It had some similarities, but then,
Yeah.
went in a different direction. But I was like, oh. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's not The Dark Half.
I'm pretty sure it's King. I mean, I'll check
But-
after
okay.
this. I'm pretty sure that it is.
Okay.
But I would like to see more Stephen King adaptations in a theatrical release.
Yeah,
absolutely.
me too. Yeah, me too, for
So
sure.
hopefully in the next couple of years we do get more. But I think, guys, with that,
With that, I think
I think
we're
we're
done.
going to be done. Next film we see most likely will be Top
This
Gun
is
Maverick.
this is the most beer
Oh, and I'm
I've
surprised.
ever had in my glass while at the end of an episode.
That's true.
Nothing's even come
That's
close.
true.
I don't know.
Everybody referenced this video because
This
doesn't
This is
happen.
like a bad Guinness record.
well, you're not gonna chug that right now. So.
I'm not going to chug it, but I'm gonna have to do a little better than what I have.
So, ladies and gents, thank you guys so much again for watching and listening. We always appreciate your guys' support. With that, episode 55, the double nickel, is in the books.
Yep.
So, cheers, guys. Take care.
Cheers.
Be
See
safe
you
out
next
there.
time.
Go see some movies.